If you look at my last 10 years in business, I probably could have cut that time in half. It was a bit of a gamble because I did have such a great thing going. It's not until you really get into the game that you become an entrepreneur.
Hey, what's up? It's Jacob here, and today I'm really excited to chat with Kevin and get his story. Kevin, thank you for coming on again today, and I'm really excited about this one. You do business differently than a lot of other people, and I've just always found doing business with you really unique. I wanted to talk to you just about business in general and your life. If you could sum it up to one thing, what is your mission? What's the one thing that you care most about?
First off, thanks for the kind words. So glad you've been part of our journey as well. And I think we're going to do something super special here together at the Wealthy Landscaper. Yeah, I think my mission is just to live a valuable life, and I mean that from my family, which is my number one priority, to my businesses, my business partners, my teams. Yeah, I'm trying to live the most awesome, valuable, fun life I can and help others when I can.
What about helping others contributes to your life and makes it better?
The value that you can create for others gets back to you tenfold. I think it is one of the most rewarding things you can do. It's obviously easier when you have more time or support to do it, because I think a lot of times to really bring great value to other people, especially in business, it takes more than one person. So yeah, I think, you get to a certain point in your life where you've had some success, you've built a great business, you've kind of checked a lot of boxes in your life. And this is one of the things that I haven't checked. I've been working on it on and off, and with, at a minor level with various people over the years. But I think now I really feel like I have the time, I have the lifestyle that I can really contribute to it, really put some energy into it, invest in traveling and speaking events and really just trying to share as much as I can with what I've learned over the past 20 years in the landscape industry.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, you've come a long way in your career. I think it's easy to always look at the end results. And I think this is something we kind of get stuck in as a culture now. And we know it's not that easy. You've had a long go at it. How did you become the version of Kevin that you are today?
I think when I was younger, if I think back to, high school, I'm not proud to say that I didn't finish high school, but I always liked to work. And I think through working throughout my career and working with numerous mentors, and I was very fortunate in some of the business that I worked with that I was at for a very long time. I had great people to work for. And I think between that, I think my wife has certainly been a big part of who I've become over the years, as well as my kids. When you become a father, life changes a lot, and you really appreciate your time and what sort of value comes to you from your children. And it doesn't stop. It just keeps on going. And I think, from the family side, that's definitely a big part of it. And I think from a business side, I've just been so fortunate over the years to have so many great clients as well that I've watched grow businesses from multi-million to billions, build their dream homes, live their dream life, and to share in some small part with them that process and watch them doing it, really, not only helps you create what you want to get to or what you aspire to be, but kind of shows you the type of person you need to be. And believe me, there's all different types of people that are successful. For me, I've always just valued my family the most, and business is a big part of who I am today, but my family is still first. I can still run multiple businesses with great teams and great people in place. And believe me, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's why I do everything I do. I love it. I love working with them all. It's creative. It's fun. You're closing sales, making deals, making partnerships, relationships. There's travel involved. There's, vacations away with groups of people that you work with. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just love trying to contribute and being able to contribute as much as I can to my family, and the things I do for work really fuel my lifestyle and what I'm allowed to do with my family, and the trips and time off, and uh yeah, it's just brings such a great quality of life.
Okay, so how'd you get started into landscaping then? How did you make your way?
Well, when I left high school in grade 12, I went to work. There was a new golf course being built where I lived, and I got a job on the golf course. So it was a new 18-hole construction project. I worked there for a couple of years while that was being built, and that wasn't really landscaping, but a lot of the same principles, same equipment, turf related, a lot of drainage work, some stone installation, some patio installation, and that was probably my first sort of touch point with it. From there, I moved down to Kitchener, which is about 3 hours away from Huntsville, where I grew up, Port Sydney actually, and I went to work for an irrigation company, and I worked for them for a couple of years doing residential and golf irrigation. And then from there, I really, I was really random with my plans. I had no real plans at the time. Nothing that I really. I mean, I enjoyed the irrigation business. I enjoyed the golf construction, but they weren't my lifelong goals. They weren't things that really got me excited about getting out of work or out of bed every day. And I went back to school, got a horticulture degree. And when I came out from that program, I was now 22, 23. I got a job with a company called Gateman Malloy out of Kitchener, building golf courses. But the golf course construction was a boom at that point. This was like, 96, 97. There was multiple golf courses being built all around Ontario in the US.
Mhm.
And I would work out of town remotely. It was also right around when I met my wife at that time. And shortly after, she became pregnant. But I was at that job with Gateman Malloy for 10 years, building golf courses all around Ontario. It was a little tougher because I was always out of town during the week, unless I had a project that was close to home. We were kind of based in Richmond Hill at the time. But I love that. And that job taught me a lot. Like I used to manage sites with, up to 100 people on site between earth moving equipment, labor, surveyors, drainage people, turf installers, seeders, grading.
And you were just late 20s at that point?
I was like mid 20s. So what had happened, when I went to work for Gateman, at the time, I think we had about 80 employees. And when I left 10 years later, we were well over 400. So I kind of got in at the right time where, somewhat got thrown into the fire to manage some projects in the golf industry. And then golf like went bananas with new construction, and we started getting like 5, 6 new projects a year. And big projects. Like back then, a new golf course, depending on where you were, was anywhere from 7 to 10 million just for the course. Didn't include clubhouse or landscaping or anything like that. But
No.
it really taught me about systems, and the company that I was working for had a great program, great people to work with, great communication. And again, my focus wasn't so much on that stuff. I wish I would have paid attention more to it when I was there. I was more focused on getting the work done, and I had other people in, on site and in the home base that would kind of look after the financial end. I was always kind of up to date with it, but yeah, I can't say enough about the job. I had a great salary, I had a great pension plan, benefits, vehicle, visas, lots of travel with the company. They would take us to Vegas, so like the heavy equipment shows, and lots of golf, which I love. I love to golf. And then from there, I just knew I wanted to get back to Muskoka. Our children, we had our second daughter by then. The kids were like 4 and 1, and we wanted to get back up. My wife's family had moved to Muskoka. My family was still in Muskoka, and I'd always thought about trying to become a business owner. And honestly, at the beginning, I thought it was just a way to make more money. But at that time, like when I started my business, I was 34. So, kind of a little late to the game. It was a bit of a gamble because I did have such a great thing going at Gateman Malloy. So I was really torn for a long time. And I tell you, was probably one of the hardest things I ever did, was telling them that I was leaving. I felt like I was disappointing them so much, because at that point I was a pretty integral part of the golf operation, which was a big revenue earner.
So you spent 10 years with Gateman Malloy building golf courses. And by the time you're leaving, you're early 30s, mid 30s, and you're kind of running a lot of the stuff going on there. Yeah, that would be incredibly harsh to leave that. It seems like that's kind of like, great, you're on track. Like, that's you forever now. You
It
travel, you get to do all this great stuff.
it was a good gig, and to be honest, when I think back about it, I was kind of torn at the time, because there was a lot of great opportunities overseas as well for golf course construction in Europe, Asia, Middle East. Like they were looking for site supers everywhere. So I toyed with that for a long time too, but it was tough because our girls were now at the age where they were starting school. We were likely to be moving around a lot. I didn't want to be away, and that was probably one of the biggest factors of leaving Gateman. Was I didn't want to be out of town anymore. I was often gone. Like I'd leave Monday morning at 4 a.m., drive to wherever we were going. I'd work 12 or 14 hours a day minimum. Come home Wednesday night for a quick dinner and crash, put the kids to bed, drive back to where we were the next morning. It was tough. So that was a contributing factor as well. And then I started talking to some friends up here, and started looking a little bit more into the industry. And funny enough, when I left, I got a renovation job for a golf course locally through Gateman Malloy. So I was now no longer an employee, but I was a sub trade, and they paid me every 2 weeks, which gave us a bit of cash flow and a good way to start. I had some good staff at the time, 3 of which are still with me today, which is a proud thing for me to have. And they one's our general manager now, and one's our operations manager. So the transition for those guys has been fun to watch as well. So that was kind of the start of it, but it was scary as hell. We had a pretty successful first year, but it was nothing like when you're a salaried employee and your check just magically shows up every 2 weeks. It's an incredible thing. So to go from that to nothing, and it wasn't like I had a bank of savings or credit, or we had just built a new house. It was tough times, but exciting.
Before we move on from that, I do have a question. Would you recommend, looking back at that now, obviously, we just talked about it. You saw that as a great sort of stepping stone to get into the industry. There was a lot of opportunity there to grow. You obviously gained so much experience in machinery, scheduling, working with crews, all sorts of stuff, I'm guessing. Would you recommend that people that are interested in starting a landscape business go and work for someone else?
I don't think you have a choice, especially if you're going to be the one leading the charge when you start. You've got to be able to train other people. You've got to know the right skills. Unless you have the opportunity where you've got good cash flow and you can hire all the right people, it's going to be a tough go for you if you don't have any experience. And for whatever reason, that's kind of the landscape industry in a nutshell. Is like, I bet you if you asked 95% of the very successful, like, guys who have grown their business 10, 50, 100 million in the landscape industry, they probably started out as a landscaper for somebody else somewhere, or mowing lawns, or installing pavers, helping install pools, something like that. And, it's not until you really get into the game that you become an entrepreneur. Like I often say, like, you basically create a long-term job for yourself until your business grows to become an entrepreneur, and you start looking at it like a business and treating it like a business and working on it, not in it. That's when the changes happen.
What does someone need in them? Like, what's the indicator in someone that says that they're going to be a successful landscape business owner, that they should branch out and start their own thing? What do you think that looks like?
I think what it should look like and how it actually happens are completely different. Seriously, I think how a lot of landscape companies get started, and contracting companies, carpenters, you know, somebody that is working for a company gets offered to do a small project somewhere, and they know what the company's charging, so they figure they can charge that. And the first few projects, you're overwhelmed by how much money you make, but then you start to understand like what it actually cost. And that sort of scenario doesn't always work out well. You see a lot of those types of businesses in all trade industries start because somebody thought they'd make more money by going to work direct for somebody. And then 2 months later, they have no work or they have no money to fund to get, the next job. But I would say if you were going to start a new business as a young person, working for a company that has a great training program, has a very systematic approach, like a larger landscape company, so that you can really take advantage of not only the on-site skills and equipment operation and tool operation and just strategies about different issues that come up on sites. That's a big component of it. But if you can really dive into how they operate, how they use their systems, how they do their payroll, the time tracking, deliveries, like vendors, all that sort of stuff, that would be the best way. And I don't think a year's not enough. 2 years probably isn't enough. You probably need like 3 or 4 years in a business like that to really, propel yourself maybe into a super's position while still gaining all that other knowledge on how everything operates and runs. And then from there, I think if you had a little bit of financing in place, you had some good credit so you could buy the equipment that you needed, you're probably in a good spot to start, as long as you know that you're going to need to work your ass off, implement as many good strategies as you can into your business, hire good people, get paid, have good contracts, have a good lawyer, have a good accountant.
The easy stuff.
The easy stuff, yeah. But it's the stuff that nobody knows when they get into it, right?
Yeah.
It's a big learning curve going from site super who knows how to do all the work to operating on a shoestring budget, not knowing where your next job's coming from, making sure you get paid on every project, selling yourself as better than another contractor. But that's how you start, right? You gotta build your business, build a brand, show that you can do competent work. Then you really start to get some progress in your business.
You just outlined so many things that are great indicators of a successful entrepreneur at the beginning of their business. If there was one thing that you could see in someone and be like, that is going to be a successful landscape business owner, what do you think it is?
Drive, like eagerness to learn. And just to back up a bit, Jake, like probably the ideal situation would be to work for a really good landscape company through university while you're getting a business degree and learning some marketing, then come out, dive into it for a couple of years to really make sure you've got the skills tuned in so you know what you're actually doing and what you're talking about, then start the business. Because I think what happens for a lot of guys, they don't have that education and they don't know what they need to do to run a business properly.
Right.
And there's no like one-stop shop to tell you all the things that you need to do about being incorporated or sole proprietorship and how do I do my taxes and HST and employee termination papers, and like there's like that's a whole learning curve in itself. But there are ways, like you can hire a good bookkeeper, you can hire a good lawyer, like there's lots of ways to get through that stuff. But the problem is a lot of guys don't know when they start. They just don't know where to start. They know how to do the work and they probably know a few people to get the work, but they don't know how to run a business. And I was the same. I went through 4 or 5 years of making mistakes. I just at the time I just thought, well, if I just work hard and I work 16 hours a day and I do my paperwork myself and I hire really good people and pay them nothing, I'll be successful. And you can muddle away at that for a while, but it's not a business. It's a very, very stressful job.
Yeah, it is for sure.
And I'm sure that story is true for many landscape business owners that have had great success.
Yeah, totally. What took you from the 5 years of grind and hustle and squeeze every penny out, do everything yourself, to the well-oiled machine that, sort of came around, what, maybe like year 8 or 10?
Yeah, 9, 10 probably.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. What was the transformation that happened in there?
A couple of things. One, I started taking education more seriously. I started doing a lot more seminars, a lot more conferences, a lot more online learning. I hired a bookkeeper, which was probably my biggest hurdle when I was small, because I was just like, well, how am I going to fill their time? And then, truthfully, the first bookkeeper I had, they worked. Well, it was actually my wife, Kate, at the beginning, and my mom for a little while. But then the first bookkeeper we hired, she would work 2 days a week and do what the three of us were doing in a week. So that was a game changer. And then from there, I think, yeah, between education and just focusing more, like I was now at a point where we probably had a dozen or 14 people, and I didn't need to be on site all the time. It wasn't that I didn't need to be, I really couldn't be. I needed to be prepping the next project, checking in on the guys on, 2 or 3 different sites, making sure we had the right equipment or rentals. So yeah, I think it kind of progressed from there, but those were probably the getting out of working every day. I still spent a lot of time on site and working on site, but very, very little as time went on, and getting some people in the office. And then I think from there, it was probably like year 7 or 8. We now had 2 people in the office. We hired a designer. And even when we hired our first designer, and I've had this conversation, I don't know how many times with other contractors, like they just can't get around hiring a designer to help sell their projects. And when we did that, Colin and I, who's my GM now, we talked for hours about, well, we can get them to help on sites if they have a little bit of experience, like when there's not design work to do. And, we were so worried about what are they going to do? Anyway, we hired this guy, Cam, who was amazing, an amazing hire, and such a fun guy to work with. Still very close with him. He was busy all the time, and because he was busy, we were busy. And now different types of projects were coming in because we offered design services. We were now getting better fit customers, not people that just say, oh, I just want 6 steps over there and a pathway. And those jobs are fine, but you still need a detailed quote based on a design, so that there's no confusion about what you're doing and not doing.
Totally.
So that was a game changer. And then the other biggest thing that got us to look kind of like, by that time we were probably doing like 4.5, maybe 5 million a year in sales. Our net wasn't fantastic, but it was getting better. I was starting to learn a little more. We had built a new house, and above it we had built this 800 square foot garage, 800 square foot office above the garage, separate entrance, washroom, little kitchenette, some closed door offices. And we were like, man, this is so perfect. And within that year, we were now looking for more office space, and we moved out of the office, which is now a gym. But that was a game changer, like getting out of the house and getting a space in the center of the area that we work, where all of our sub trades could stop in and have a conversation anytime. We could bring our customers and show them past photos and put things on the big screen and show them different products and lighting fixtures. And that just took us to a next, yeah, exactly. It took us, that was a game changer. That was a game changer. And that's honestly, when we moved out of the house, we went from like 5 to 8 million in a year and a half. And then it was probably by like year 9 where we started hitting double digits.
That brings up 2 questions. First question is, do you remember what the impetus was for starting to build the business side of the business? Like what kickstarted you to being like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hire the bookkeeper. We're going to get a designer. Like, what shifted in your head other than being like, were you just testing the waters and being like, is this going to work? I don't really know. Or were you like, no, we're going all in. This is going to be an empire.
Well, I don't think I had that vision at the time, but I honestly think a lot of it was just out of physical exhaustion. Like I just knew I couldn't do any more than I was doing.
Mm.
And people on the team didn't have the skill set at the time to really support that end of it. And my wife was kind of maxed out. Um, and to be honest, like that was another game changer. And you know, my wife at around that time stopped working in the business when we moved out of the house. And I'm not saying that that was the best thing ever, but it certainly was a big, on a personal side, was a great relief for both of us. And to be able to go to work, come home, knowing that we're not going to talk about work. I don't have to recap my day. We don't have to talk about who got paid or why we didn't get paid, or you know what I mean. It was just,
I do.
yeah. And I think every young entrepreneur knows that, woman or man. Like you can go through that, but um, no, I think I just learned enough at the time. And I had a good friend of mine who has a very successful business who does well over 100 million a year uh, in the building world. He said to me, he said, the best money you'll spend will be in the office. And I think when you're a young entrepreneur in the landscape industry, you look at, I could get another skid steer, or I could get somebody really good in the office to help me with paperwork. And you just can't, like, this is going to work and I'm going to bill it hourly. This is going to cost me. And it's so hard to believe, but once you have that person and systems start to happen and things get easier, the money gets better, right? Now you're not missing things. You're not missing hours or deliveries or whatever goes on. Um, so yeah, I think it wasn't like a 1 day thing or a light went off or anything like that. It was just like, okay, we got to make a change, and where's the best place to make it? And that was it.
Yeah, that'd be a tough decision to make. For a lot of logical reasons, but also because you can get in a skid steer and drive around. It's super fun, right? So can't really
True.
do that with an office employee. So
No, that's right. That's right.
I think one of the things that's always really gotten me about Muskoka landscapers, even around the time that I started, but especially just after that, it was always this, it was like a best foot forward practice. It was like you were only going to show the best stuff. I even think back to some of the projects that you would send me and my team on to go and capture content for. And I guess at the beginning it was just me, and I would go out and I would
Right.
be, there were some projects where you're like, you don't need to worry about like shooting those steps over there. Don't, those treads are just like, they look good, but they're not what we're selling. They're not what we're selling tomorrow, And then you would send me to some sites where you're like, this is totally, I remember walking onto one specific site the first time that I saw landscaping done like this. And it was so modern. Everything's square cut. Everything's coming down. Stairs are, all squared off. Everything's totally like symmetry, everything, right? And I think about you guys, and it's just always been like that since then. It was like, we're only going to show the best stuff. How has that affected how your business grew? You were just always, it just seemed like you were always getting these unique opportunities and only showcasing those.
Yeah, relationships, partnerships. Um, we have a particular customer who was really a game changer in the Muskoka area, and we started with them right when he came to Muskoka. And from there, we probably built 8 or 9 incredible projects together. And when that started, there was like this, it was kind of a transitional stage with architecture at the time as well. So a lot of the things that he was building and we were working on for him were like kind of changing the landscape a little bit as far as what could be done. And that just caught on like wildfire. And through his networking, we were very fortunate to be referred for a lot of projects because, we were working on his projects, and between him and his wife, they're both like super creative people, and were very fun to work with. And he would kind of give us free reign to kind of do what we thought best on the landscape. There was obviously, some guidelines and parameters we were trying to work within, but for the most part, we were able to just build some really cool stuff and have fun doing it. And it was great for the guys on site because they could be super creative and come up with ideas as the project went on. But yeah, I think, outside of him as well, like there's just many other relationships that get created. And when you can get a referral from a customer that everybody looks to or knows of or has seen the work on, um, that's like the project's yours to lose, unless you really muddle or don't answer them or don't respond, quickly to emails and estimates and things like that. The chance of you losing it are pretty slim. So referral based business is always the best. I think, especially in the type of work that we do. I think it's different depending on where you are logistically. Sometimes, if you're in a highly competitive city doing maintenance, pricing's often a lot more important, but it also depends on the area that you're in, right? So, yeah, I think, again, the biggest thing at that time is just relationships, and it continues to be relationships. Advertising and Instagram and socials are amazing ways to share content and show people what you're working on. And we often now we try to show a lot of like just the team doing projects or doing cool stuff or building cool things. And probably half of our followers are other landscape companies or other people in the industry, and it creates this fun vibe for everybody to kind of, show each other what they're doing. So again, advertising's great, relationships are better.
The partnership that you created with that developer, you had to work really hard for that. You were giving up a lot of the freedoms that you had probably just earned at that point, in your business and stuff like that. Let's talk about that, because I know that was a big partnership for you, but it was something that you had to work at.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, along with those types of projects comes high demand and expectations and scheduling commitments and efficiencies, and working with multiple trades where normally you would have a little more time in between trades, so you're not working around each other. And so yeah, it was I don't want to say stressful work, but the end was always stressful. The month before move-in was always very, very stressful for everybody, I think, right? Everybody's trying to finish at the same time, which is not impossible, but very difficult. But when you've got a good conductor like that, and he was very involved, so I think there was high expectations from him, but also for the other people that were working there. Everybody had high expectations of what they were delivering, knowing that there was a bit of a spotlight on it all. So, yeah, stressful, long days, big effort. We would shut down other projects sometimes to ramp up the crew sizes that we needed to finish on time. And yeah, there was a lot of give and take in those days for sure. And you know what, there still is on many projects.
What's the biggest crew that's been on site from you guys?
Well, we this year we had the whole team, 38 people, on one project just for a day. We kind of made it into a lunch thing. It was a massive cottage project that we finished, and it was sod day. I forget what we had, 40 odd skids of sod or something to go down. So we kind of brought everybody. We did a lunch. We cleaned up. We watered. We had a bunch of content, and it was just more of a fun day to have everybody together. But we frequently have 10 to 12 people with 3 or 4 different machines running around, and lots of stone being cut and laid. And if you factor in subtrades and masonry and tree work and all that sort of stuff, like not unusual for us to have 20 people or more on site for a specific period of time.
What's changed in your life over the last, I don't know, maybe 4 years? I feel like there's been some big changes. Muskoka Landscapers has this much more clean aesthetic. There's high demand. COVID happened. Lots of things have changed over the past 4 years. Let's talk about that. What's different in your life today versus, let's say, 2019?
I think 2019 was a big transitional year for us. And for whatever reason, again, gets back to learning. That was when we had kind of changed our focus. I think for many, many years, good or bad, clients were number one, profit was number two, and then the team. And that's kind of when we flipped and made the team number one. And it was a slow process. Like that kind of shift doesn't happen overnight. It was probably over the course of a year, maybe even more. But man, once we started focusing on the team and lifestyle and family time and efficiency and waste and all these other great things come, when you start doing things like that, your culture changes, and automatically you just get better results. Like when you have good culture with good SOPs and good systems, metrics to measure them all, you end up doing a better job. And it's not necessarily that I've done a better job. I've certainly tried to orchestrate the creation of that stuff, but the people that are in the field and the project managers, the supers, the guys on the saws, the girls, everybody in the field is the one that is really contributing to the success of these projects. And, good owner relationships and good communication, and like the business was doing well. It was successful. Our net income was probably like middle of the range for the landscape industry at the time, but it was also at a time where we were getting close to double digits, and then right away after we were in double digits, right? And our net improved, everything improved, workflow improved, there was less stress, we were more efficient, we were more communicative, we had better culture, we had better staff. So much easier to hire when you got a great culture, because often somebody knows somebody. So
Right.
that was a big change for us, and I'm so glad we did it. And I think like on a personal level, that's my life kind of changed a little bit at that point too, where you get to a certain point in life where I don't want to say comfortable, but you're feeling confident where you are and what you're doing. And when you can deflect anything that anybody else is thinking or worrying about that isn't in the same zone as yourself, life gets much better, right? When you can block that stuff out and just focus on you and your team and your family,
Sure.
and not worry about everything else, right? And it's so funny, like people often think that, oh, I got to be this way with everybody. I got to do this, I got to do that, and to create this certain image. But honestly, you don't. Like, be yourself, be honest, do what you need to do as a business owner, and don't feel bad about it.
Speaking of do what you need to do as a business owner, I realized that I gotta be jumping back in the timeline here, but something just popped into my head over the 10 years or so that we've been working together. How did I forget to ask Kevin about the landscaping irrigation business that you started, a pool business that you started, a stone business that you started? I'm like, a maintenance property management business that you started. I'm like, how many businesses have you started in that time? This is like pre 2019 even. You've always just been like, let's go, let's go, let's go, and spinning off these things that end up finding success. And yeah, talk to me about that. What was that time in your life like, sort of like, and how did that come about?
I think when you start to become more serious about business, and you have a business that creates good cash flow and creates opportunities to do vertical things that can benefit your business as well as somebody else, you dive into it. I mean, creating new businesses is a ton of fun, but you got to be in a certain mindset and a certain position to do it, and you also got to be able to not be successful, right? I've been very fortunate.
No.
I've always had good people at the beginning, and I've also had great partnerships. So we've built and sold 3 businesses. I'm currently a 50% partner in 3 others. But again, they're all kind of vertically related to landscape, as supply, design. all things that I love. They're all different in their own way. Um, and then the spec building, I've been doing some of that with a couple of different partner groups for the past 5 or 6 years, and that's something I really love. Like I'm happy to go sweep the floors and check things out, make sure everybody's trades have got what they need, and I love the design process and the sales process, and that's a that's a fun one for sure. And again, it's just another great revenue income. Uh, and I think too, when you work with people you like on things that you like, you know, value is going to come from somewhere.
How do you know? How do you know when to stop? How do you know when to sell? How do you know when to break off of
I
that
have no
stuff?
idea. No idea. I don't know. I think you want to plan for it. You want to be prepared for it because eventually there will be a day where you'll get up and it'll be like, you know, yeah, I need to get rid of a few things, or I need to change things up a little bit, but I'm not
Mm.
there. And again, I keep referring to team, but honestly, like if I didn't have the people that I have, I may think about it more. But a few of the businesses that I'm involved with are quite easy to manage at a high level. They're not a big time suck. Um, a few require a little more time, but they're also the ones that I love the most. So uh, they're all fun. And then at Landscapers, we
Right.
just have such a great group, um, and always this good momentum and always trying to improve, and everybody's sort of got the same mindset. So why would I? And not only that, like not to you know I get to spend lots of time on vacation and skiing and doing cool trips and all the things I love to do. So why would I stop? You know,
Yeah.
I love it all.
Let's talk about the other thing that you're focusing your time on, the wealthy landscaper. I mean, that's why you and I are talking right now, trying to give people the perspective of what we're trying to do with the platform. Um, why are you putting so much time into the wealthy landscaper?
I don't know. I really believe in it. I think we can do a lot of good with it. I think in the landscape industry, there's a lot of opportunity to see younger companies and smaller companies really benefit from the type of stuff that we're going to be doing on the Wealthy Landscaper and the type of stuff we're going to be sharing. When it gets SOPs and templates and the blogs that we've been creating, as well as the accelerator program. Um, yeah, I see a a great opportunity to share not only what I've learned, but with other industry leaders that are going to be involved to share their stories and their experiences, and um, really give people, young entrepreneurs or people that are struggling to get over the 3 million hump or the 5 million hump, uh, a real system to get there, some real metrics to work towards, not only in their business but in their life. Because when all those things are happening, you need to focus a lot of effort on your personal life as well. Um, you know, create some balance. But I think from the people that we're going to be sharing with and the interviews that we're going to be doing, it'll just be a great system for people to get great information from people who have done it and actually
Right.
been there in the trenches and know what can go wrong and how it feels, and the downside of being an entrepreneur. Like there's a lot of great stories that can be shared as well as the upside. And then on top of that, we're just going to create this community where people can share stories and reach out to people that they're aspiring to be like, or businesses they're aspiring to be like, and ask the real questions about, like, what did you do when this happened? Like, well, I tried this at first, but then that didn't really work. So I talked to somebody, I did this and it worked well. But I think there'll be tons of conversations like that where people will be able to just learn from each other and hopefully save as many people as we can from making the same mistakes. And if they do make the same mistake, giving them a way to get a really good solution quickly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, and I mean, there's other industries with things like this. There's business coaching everywhere, but in such a niche industry that is landscaping, landscape construction, um, there's nothing like it. You have to go learn it all the hard way, right? Like, and it's at least that's what it seems like. And so I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a really accessible way to get in and learn. I guess, what do you think the value is for landscape business owners? How many years would this have accelerated you, do you think, in your almost 20 years in the business now?
Yeah, I think I mean it's so hard to say what could have happened, but I really believe if you look at my last 10 years in business, I probably could have cut that time in half. Like getting from the 5 to 10, I think I could have, if I knew now what I knew then, which again it is always hard to say, but um and you know what, I think there's all kinds of great training programs in the landscape industry, and there's some great coaches out there and some great systems. Um, but my hope is that we'll get people that really buy in, and that's what it's going to be on like if you don't want to be accountable and you don't want to dive into yourself and your business, then we might not be the spot for you. Like
Hmm.
we're not just an information client. Like we're my whole goal with this thing is to make it so that people can get some instant help, but then settle into like the long term work and plan that it's going to take to actually improve their business. Because it's not,
Right.
we've talked over the past months about quick fixes, and there's a few little ones that will help for a bit if you're really diligent about implementing them, like SOPs. But to really break down your business into what you need to do and what type of projects you need to get and what partnerships you need to make to get from 1 to 3. And even before that, like let's make sure you're making 10 to 15% net before we even start to try and grow, right? Let's create systems that are going to give you the capacity to grow and tell you exactly, okay, when we hit this mark, we need this person, right? When we hit
Right.
this mark, we need these 2 people, and start building out those org charts and the KPIs so that every month you've got something to track against and to really see where you're at, and then have a conversation about that. I think it's going to be unique that way because it's more of a long term play, and I'm hoping that we really see some commitment from people, and we've got a lot of great ways to help keep them accountable. Um, because everybody wants to get to the top, but it's it's a it's a struggle, and you got to be willing to put it in. And I think the benefits of the wealthy landscaper is they can likely give you a little push up the hill.
Okay. Last one for you. Looking back, and observing the success that you've had, how much of it would you attribute to luck, and how much would you attribute to hard work?
In business, I don't think there's a lot of luck, to be honest. I think it's all hard work. One of the things that frustrates me the most is when you get into a conversation with somebody, or you're at a conference and somebody says, "That guy's so lucky." It ain't luck, right? He didn't get there because he was lucky, or she. Success requires work and effort and blood and sweat and tears and all the ups and downs that go with it. Um, but what you can do is try and find a system that supports what you're trying to do, gives you solutions and opportunities to create systems that will benefit you to get there, and hopefully with a lot of hard work you can get there as unbruised as possible. um, because it's you know you can ask anybody who's in business how they became successful, and you know what, a lot of it could be right time, right place, right customer. Like I was very fortunate to have the customer that I had, because that really kicked off a lot of other projects for us and helped us grow. um, so maybe that part was lucky, that I actually got the call from that customer when they first came to Muskoka. But I think if you settle in for the road ahead, and you really grind in a methodical way that doesn't take away from your life and you know your physical health, your mental health, your family's life, um, and just contributes to it, um, then you can get to where you want to go very very quickly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for the chat. Happy to go through the storyline that is your life, and yeah, I'm really excited for what's to come. I feel like there's just always so much with you on the go, and yeah, I'm pumped to see it and also bring it to life through the Wealthy Landscaper and share it with other people too. So, thanks for your time, and yeah, have a good one.
All right. Cheers, Jake.